And oh yeah, it's so weird because well, we are recording, but now so is throwing me for a loop. Tuesday, September 2nd, 2025 at 11:05 a.m. Eastern time with Dr. Demitry. And yeah, I get your AI transcriber or whatever started recording and it did the recording in progress. And that to me, as I was telling you, it's like Pavlovian. I just immediately when that happens, it's I just turn it on like a light switch. Doesn't matter if I'm tired or not, just time to do the show. And then I just did the hit record and it didn't make the noise because I guess yours already did. So this is, I mean, I totally just in the last 5 minutes, I think I have like a much better understanding of MK Ultra. Just like trigger words. I'm always like, that's BS. That couldn't work. And like recording in progress. And I sit up immediately. First thing I do is look at the top right, date, time. I'm like, wow, no, wow, okay. So but so more of a unique opening to a
And
show.
here
But
here you go. You're starting the programming. So
you
now the
guys, yeah, yeah.
subconscious routine is running and off you go.
Just black out immediately, start talking about targets in the Soviet Union. But Dr. Dimitri, please introduce yourself for everybody and as well as myself.
Yeah, well, I'm Pete Demitry. I'm the executive director for the National Foundation for Integrative Medicine. So been an Air Force physician, an officer for 28 years, flew in the Air Force, practiced medicine, and then when I retired, eventually we started the foundation.
What is FASM? It's a medical doctor, Masters of Public Health. What is FASMA?
Fascinating. It's
I,
it's a fellow it's a fellow of the Aerospace Medical
got
Association.
it.
So yeah, yeah,
Got it. Yeah, no,
yeah, the old phasma.
I've never,
It's
yeah, I've never
who
seen
are
that.
these phasma people out here? It's
Yeah,
not a political group.
fair enough. How old are you? Just curious.
I'm 69.
No, no, just because I mean you practice medicine, Air Force, and there does kind of, like we are just talking, our mutual friend EM, there seems to be a certain trait, some of the Delta Force guys I'm friends with, it's not at all unique that they finish one thing and then they go into a completely new field and utterly excel at it. It's just it does to me it's like no surprise. It's no surprise that Hall of Fame quarterbacks or pitchers go on to become great announcers. It's because it's just that's kind of in their composition. So I'm always curious when there's someone that does this and then a relatively drastically different field. It seems to just kind of be a general uh, pursuit of, I don't know, either perfection or challenge.
Yeah, well, actually, when I retired, I actually left medicine. So I retired as the Assistant Air Force Surgeon General. And when I got out, I kind of looked around. I go, yeah, no, this isn't what I want to be doing. And it wasn't until I was on the receiving side of a scalpel, for the first time in my life that all of a sudden I got a taste of the Western medical system and kind of like from the patient's perspective. And again, we talk about it all the time, as physicians and stuff, but when you're on the receiving side and you lose all sovereignty and control, it's a totally different experience. And and that put a fire in my belly again. And again, like most people who are doing integrative medicine, um, there's normally some personal experiences, some family things, or either to people you love or for yourself that actually makes you start really questioning a lot of, okay, this is what I've been doing for 28 and a half years. What's meritorious in it? And then what doesn't make a lick of sense?
When you say you got out of the Air Force and then you said this isn't what I want to do, what wasn't, what did you not want to do? The
Oh,
Air Force.
yeah, I didn't leave the Air Force and then start, go into a medical practice or anything. I kept all my credentials. I dabbed in medicine to keep current and everything, in primary care, aerospace medicine, hyperbaric medicine, those kinds of things are pretty straightforward in terms of, staying up with the latest literature and stuff. But yeah, but medicine in the U.S., I think most physicians will tell you medicine in the U.S. is not easy, and on most days it's not fun.
Hmm. I mean that it's not really a surprise. I graduated the University of Georgia in 2013. biology degree. I got accepted to Miami Miller School of Medicine. Decided not to go. Smart enough to get in, dumb enough to go. I don't want to do this. Applied to pharmacy school, got into pharmacy school. It's like I don't want to do this either. And very long story. Now I'm here. But in terms of just in general, not really being able to slow down, I do know that like I can't stop moving and learning, and it took me a long time to realize that. I mean, you know what it's like to get into med. You gotta put your heart and soul into it. And I
Sure.
graduated, and I think I was under the illusion that like, oh, I'm not happy because I just spent all of my time working. Not long after I graduated, lost my older brother to suicide like a couple months later, and so I just kind of went off the rails for a couple years. And of course, the suicide was a huge part, but I also had nothing to do, and I didn't want to do anything. And I thought because it wasn't a very good control experiment of like, let's see what it's like to work
Yeah.
7 days a week, get up, exercise, go to the gym and study, and then let's see what it's not. And it's like, in one little asterisk, what's that? Your older brother killed himself. And it's like, wait, that's not a good experiment. But I kind of went insane and back into doing the podcast and been doing it for almost 6 years. I can now see 10, 15 years later uh, I love structure. I love getting up early. I love cumulative work. 1,828 episodes. I love tracking the revenue and the subscribers and the views and all that good stuff. It was just that medicine wasn't what I wanted to do. But in terms of work, in terms of structure, long-term goals, the challenge, I love all of that, but it was the absence of that which kind of drove me insane. I thought that's what you were saying was you had gotten out and retired and the absence of work or
Oh no.
challenge. Okay.
Oh no, I've never been working harder than my life. So, in the Air Force, there were frequently 15, 16-hour days. Now
Sure.
they're just as long with the foundation. It's a 501(c)(3). So, it's a charity. So
Hmm.
we're a service organization, and 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 medicine is all about structure, actually. And in some ways, it's overly complex. You're looking for a structure, but the structure has gotten perverted, I think, a little bit. It's so complex that nobody understands it. And the professionals who used to be running it back when I was a kid, and you know how old I am, so that takes you back to the Marcus Welby, days perhaps, where it was a real service, it was a real noble profession to be in. And I think a lot of that, has been smashed out. Even most of us go into it for truly noble reasons. Most people go into the military. I mean, if you're looking for a job, and for money, then most people don't enlist, for the military for, a chance to go die for your country at minimum wages and hardship conditions. So that's why if you go to our website, you'll see a lot of military people, and everybody asks, you miss the military that much that you're creating another military? And I go, no, 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 no. It's just when you ask people to volunteer, it's the military people that raised their hands the first time, foolishly to go volunteer to serve their country, and they didn't learn, so they raised their hands a second time. If it's a cause they believe in, to go help, and that's really what we have. It's a great group of folks.
Did you ever read House of God?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
still
the Gomer.
yeah,
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 I
no,
have in
just
my emergency room.
yeah.
Yeah.
I just had the family member last week who's in a nearby hospital, an older guy, and that was with my aunt, and I was like, go in tomorrow and ask the doctor if they've read House of God, and she was like, why? I'm like, just ask them that, and I told her, Gomer, get out of my emergency room, and I was like, there's good news because family member's an older guy, and I went, old people never die. If you're young and you go to the hospital, you're dead. You're dead, dead, dead. And but yeah, I think who's it? Is it Fat Tuna or Big Tuna? What's that? The fat dude who he kind of said,
Yes. So I read that before med school. So I read that in between going from flying fighters to. In fact, it was probably my flight surgeon who was very good friends with, and he's the one that put the book in my hands and said, read this before you go to med school, because after that you're not going to have time. But and I'll tell you, yeah, I laughed. I laughed when I read the book because it was entertainment. It was what I called cheap entertainment. And I said, well, clearly there's got to be some part stereotypically that's true, but this can't be the case. And now all of a sudden, as an old guy, as a senior, every time I show up for medical care, it's like, yeah, no, this is getting a little too close. And quite frankly, yeah, we there's a lot of humanity that's been lost. And again, I went to Uniformed Services University. So before you graduate, you have to go to a trauma center for an extended period of time, kind of simulating, deploying to a war zone. That's some of the best training that I ever received. And I went down to Charity in New Orleans. Okay, in the '80s before Katrina was still open, and I will tell you, it was rough. I mean, when we walked home, there were a couple of military people there. We stayed in groups just because it was that kind of an inner city kind of kind of place. So there were elements of that. So it's yeah. So some of that book is more true than I think any of us would care to admit.
Yeah, my buddy was a year ahead of me and he had just gotten into med school. He was my roommate from college and he was like, "Yeah, read this book." And I read it and I was like, I was already kind of on the fence of like realizing I didn't want to be a doctor. That book certainly didn't help, but like yeah, no, I interviewed at Tulane and I also interviewed at USC Keck in LA
Yeah.
and it kind of bad experiences all around. Like Miami was way too hot. Tulane was New Orleans was kind of just disgusting and when I went to interview at LA that was the day some dude walked into LAX with an AR and shot it up and like shut down international travel. So in hindsight, I think the omens were there that I just wasn't to go down this path. But it's in-house.
Clear, yeah, clearly not for everybody.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people put their heart and soul into medical school, and I have a daughter that just, is finishing law school, and this environment is pretty interesting. It's just watching what's happening to the laws, and it's interesting to see in all the professional training in the country. I think people go in with some very, very high ideals of what they want to learn and do and be part of something bigger than self, a true profession. But I would argue, let me think what I'm going to argue here. I would argue that it's pretty hard to find a true profession anymore that is self-policing in a way that still is an altruistic profession. I don't think any of the professions, mine included, are behaving as professionals.
Mm. I mean, everything will always it's never gonna quite be as, idealistic as you think or even remotely close. I guess I kind of view it more. I'm like, is it a letdown and is it falling apart or was it never there? Like, are we?
Oh, yeah. So that's a really good point. So something I ask myself all the time is as I get older, so even in the military, am I more senior now? Because I didn't get to the top ranks for lots of reasons, I'm sure. But I saw more and more stuff, and it's question like, okay, what is going on and why? And has it always? And your question is absolutely valid. Has it always been like this? And as it's someone junior, you just don't see it because you're hidden, protected from it, or has something changed? And that's something that I believe talking to the other old timers and even people older than me. Even I mean, we work with a lot of retired surgeon generals, and I think the consensus now. Okay, so it's going to be a hybrid. You have these two extremes. Okay, and the truth is always normally in the middle, someplace. Favoring one to the other, and that's what I like your podcast is because you'll come from both sides, and whatever's being said, you'll take the contrarian view just to have the discussion, which I think is really really healthy. But I think we have a lot of people who were vested in the old interest or in the old ways of doing things, and now are looking and saying, "Okay, I don't have a conflict here, but I'm really seeing things differently." And I'm hearing things that I've never heard before. Like I have several friends whose kids are graduating from the academy and medical school now because that's what happens. I'm your parents and we're watching the kids kind of do what they're going to do and launch. And I'm hearing for the first time in my entire life things that I've never heard before, and that is, hey, doctor, slow down. Okay, if you cure this patient, it's business lost. Now,
Ooh.
now, at first, I would think that that was a macabre joke. I would say,
Or
okay,
at worst,
doctors,
unspoken.
doc, yeah, well, no,
That doesn't make it better, but I mean,
yeah,
it's so fucked that
yeah,
you would
but
think that they would at least not say it out loud.
yeah, that exactly. And doc and we in the medical profession, all of us, nurses, doctors, everybody, you're around this really, really intense environment. So amongst you, you can have some pretty dark humor just to get through the experience, but never a betrayal to the patient. Never, never that betrayal. And that's what I see. That's what I fear is happening in this overly complex system where the doctors are getting squeezed out. They're getting told what to do. Their judgment is being surpassed by by what the payers want to pay for, and it's just a very, very complex scenario now between the regulators, the payors, the patients, and the doctors in the middle. So what used to be, I mean, practicing medicine is complex to begin with, without a doubt. Nobody will doubt that. But it was complex just between the complexity of the patient and the doctor. Now you add, okay, let's go figure what your payer will pay for. Let's go figure if this drug is even, in the US inventory. Let's go figure all this other stuff out. And then let's get squeezed, financially. The sky's not falling in, but it's not that far away. And I think if you ask a lot of people, and it depends on the age group. So if you ask teenagers, and you look a lot younger than me, so we're just going to go, either you have real good longevity docs
I'm
or you're a lot
35.
younger.
Um,
Yeah. So at 35, God hoping you have very few medical challenge except an occasional over workout at the gym.
yeah.
That'll get better no matter what you do. As people start aging, though, things start happening and they have to engage the medical system. And I will tell you, I watch what some of the elderly people have to do now, that I'm kind of just got my toe into that system. It's a full-time job. I know why people have to retire now. It's a full-time job for them trying to make it to a doctor's appointment, or many of them going back and forth with the specialist, making appointments, access to care, getting the payers to authorize stuff, okay, and then getting things paid. It's a full-time job, and I'm so looking forward to never having to do that. My goal is not to get into that paradigm ever. But as you get older, the alternatives sometimes aren't so good either.
Yeah, you know, the analogy I always use. It's like you're not sad because Santa died. You realize Santa just was never there, and you can miss like the innocence of childhood. Sure, that's fine, but you have to be very real about it and be like, it wasn't there. It was an illusion. And then also, if you talk to people, you say you talk to old timers, and they go, no, it was different. On the flip side, you also have like nostalgia. Oh, it was different back then. And it's like, well, you also don't know if that's bullshit or not. Like, and I just look at just from the podcast itself, just 6 years of this, a fraction, roughly 1/6 of my life. Even this has really opened my eyes in that I'll go back and be like, yeah, no, I remember that episode I did in 2020. And I can see how my memory has skewed that. And you can't lie because there it is in audio video. And that's made me think of like, oh, well, nostalgia's not accurate. Your own memory. I mean, I've always known your memory's not perfect, but it's shocking to me just how much mundane things I've remembered
Yeah,
completely
that's fair.
incorrectly. It's hallucinations.
Yeah, no, absolutely a fair point. Absolutely a fair point. I've investigated several Class A fatal aircraft mishaps, and the worst scenario is the eyewitness,
Oh,
because
totally.
yeah, because you have, I mean,
Adrenaline
yeah,
dump,
yeah,
emotion.
yeah, no, so you're right about that. So you're right about that. So I'm not 100% sure how to convince you
No, no,
that
no, no. But I was gonna say,
in this particular case, I'm here to tell you that virtually if I talk to 50 doctors in a week, like we just had a educational experience where we were training docs on peptides this last week. And I will tell you, there's not one, there's not one who will tell you that that it's skewed to the side that you're saying. I don't know what to say except that most of us out here believe things are getting worse month by month. And even the young doctors are burnt out before the end of residency. They don't, so they go through. So think about it. They're in debt for their undergraduate degree. Some of them who have to go that way. And then their medical school, not a cheap thing and not and it and it and a real investment in their time, because time is the most valuable asset that any of us have. And that takes you a long time to figure out too. So 35, I didn't know it. At 69, totally know that is my most valuable asset to share. And then the next thing is the medical school and residency. And I will tell you that getting at people are graduating with hundreds of thousands of dollars, 130, $150,000, sometimes more, depending on what kind of scholarship, what kind of help they got. And now they're put into this system where they can't make. I mean, you think doctors make a lot of money? We all come on. We all think doctors make a lot of money. We all do. That's just a stereotype. But I will tell you, I know surgeons who will do a appendectomy and get $300 for a surgery, and it's like my plumber comes in and gets more for that, for unplugging my toilet. And I go, wow, for that investment, it's kind of, and plus the overhead for those doctors are 50% for the malpractice and everything like that. Now I'm not making an argument. I am not trying to make the argument that I feel bad for doctors. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying it's much more complex, and unless you're in the business of medicine and you see the dirty little secrets on the other side of the veil, which all industries and all professions have, then there's much more to the complexity of what's going on. And I believe it has gotten worse. In fact, yeah, I believe it. I believe it. And what's a belief? It's a thought that you just keep having over and over, But I don't know that if you bring on a lot of physicians, and you do, ask them that. Ask them that before or after the podcast. Is it different than when you practiced? And you'd still be right. Okay, over time, you have the mind forgetting and remembering the good. But normally, I'll tell you, my military career, I forget a lot of the crap that happened in my military career, and I have favorable memories. I can tell you, my go-to fun place is sometimes, flying a single seat fighter, without anybody knowing what I'm doing and what rules I might be breaking and stuff like that. I go back to that, and that is a fun place for me to go back feeling sovereign and manly and everything that goes along with flying an F-16 or an F-15 or something like that. In medicine, it doesn't happen that. And then the question that I have for you from a neuroscience standpoint is, okay, well, how can a military career take me back and have me missing part of that? But medicine that I'm doing right now and that I did for the last 40 years, yeah, I remember it being fun a long time ago. But I promise you, if you put me in an A10 today, I would have fun. I, I,
Everyone would have fun in A10. Let a fucking 30 cal run loose, or that 30, excuse me, 30 millimeter run loose.
yeah,
Um,
it
then
it is.
yeah. Well, I was gonna say is, I don't have a vested interest in any of this, and really almost none of the points I bring up on the show are ones I'm there to provide just some, because otherwise, what's the point of the discussion if we both
No,
agree?
I love it.
Yeah,
No,
yeah, yeah,
I stir the pot,
yeah, yeah.
because
So I was gonna
it'll
say,
help me. It'll help me sharpen my thinking too. Absolutely.
as a counterpoint to what I said, is like, all right, so we have illusions, then you go, well, was it ever really real? And then you also have nostalgia, and you go, you're remembering it differently. The giant hole in that logic is, so I'm saying that nothing ever changes. And I don't know, if you have at least a
Yeah.
10 IQ, you would look at human history and go, it changes. So like that's the counterpoint, is like, so you're saying nothing changes? Go back 150 years ago, you're really, oh, medicine's, it's all in your head. You're chopping off people's legs and putting mud in the wound before Joseph Lister. Like, that's obviously that's a horseshit assumption. So, and with everything, it's also like just because you haven't found it yet doesn't mean it didn't exist. You for years doing this show, I was always like, yeah, I always thought it would kind of get to a point where it paid for rent or something, and I started to feel that maybe that ideal was never true, but I kept going, and then it did break through. So it wasn't that, oh, well, the thing you believed in and hoped for never really existed. No, 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 no. You just hadn't gone far enough. So it's also fair to say if you haven't found the idealism, it could also be that you just haven't gone far enough yet, and that it is there. Um, in terms of medicine, it's also it's a hard way to look at because in the most abstract sense, completely detached, you could look at and go, oh, okay, what was life expectancy a century ago? What was I
Yeah.
don't know, infant mortality rate a century
Yeah.
ago? And
So,
we would
let's
look
go
at
there.
that.
Let's go there.
Yeah, so you'd go up and you go broadly, medicine's helping, and okay, but that doesn't really do anything for
Okay. Okay.
you. That's
Okay.
in
So
the most
let's,
basic sense.
yeah.
It's a very low threshold to say
No, so
nobody
I love
dies as much. It's like it's not the Oregon Trail anymore. I get it. It's a low threshold, but just to play contrarian, something is happening. So whether
yeah.
it's vitamins or clean drinking water or whatever the
Yeah.
theory, I have no idea. Something is happening
Okay.
that's
So
making life go on.
let's go there. I love your willingness to be self-critical, to
Yeah, I
be
don't care.
self-exploring. Yeah, no, no,
I
I
get
know, but that means you don't that means you're open to an honest both sides discussion. But let's take a look at some of what you just said. We now spend, okay, and again, these numbers are harder to find. They're from because you can't find them online anymore from the government. So I'm going to just cite to the best of my memory without any notes in front of me the notes that I've used in previous kinds of talks. And one of them is we pay more. This is not going to be hard to believe. We pay more than any industrialized country
it.
for our medical
Per
care.
person, yeah, per
And it's
person.
something in the order of 14 to $15,000 per every citizen in the US.
Larger than the
Okay.
DoD budget. Yeah.
And that equates to 18, approaching 20% of our GNP. I don't know when we'll get there, but I think technically in financial terms, that's a shitload of money. Okay. So see, that's a medical term talking about the GI tract, but in financial terms too.
Yes.
So it's a lot of money. And what do we get for that return on investment? These are government statistics. These are not mine. Okay. Because otherwise they wouldn't have as much meaning. So they're an independent group saying this is what's important to figure out what a return on medical dollars ought to look like. Okay. And we're at the bottom of every metric in all 50 industrialized countries. So we spend more than anybody and get the least out of it. Okay, if we just did some of the Slovakia countries, if we just did everything like they did, we would spend a fraction and we would have better outcomes. And it's all about the outcome that matters. And then it's also about, the way patients are told, that all of a sudden, okay, I can't figure out what's going on with you. You're crazy. I'm going to send you to the psychiatrist. It's a whole lot more of just a lack of empathy and humanity. And you know what? Guess what? In 15 minutes, your appointment in primary care is 15 minutes. Okay. In integrative medicine kind of setting, it's going to be over an hour, for the initial ones, depending on what's going on. There's just a whole lot. There's a whole lot that has changed. In fact, when we go out and teach, new technologies and stuff, some of the biggest complaints we get from physicians who actually see what some of these technologies, bioenergetic technologies can actually do, they go, I don't have that kind of time with the patient. And I go, yeah, but these patients are frequent flyers to your organization. Does your organization, so we have to turn it into a business discussion as to why it's in their interest to actually treat the patient and get the patient out of pain so the patient doesn't come in every week. And if you spend the appropriate amount of time and do the right therapy and you get them out of pain, okay, then all of a sudden, the enterprise saves money, but it's not, the incentives are very, very different. So I would say, yeah, the interesting discussion to see how things have changed is look at the incentives, how they have changed. Look who's driving, the solutions and the industry now. Okay. And then once And that's an objective change. I mean, back in the 70s, yes, there was insurance, okay, but they pretty much, you had your policy, and insurance is never about this is an entitlement. Insurance is not an entitlement. It's a it's a it's a statistical way of assessing full risk and figure out how I can help people and still make gobs of money. Okay. It's not an entitlement. And people, unfortunately, think that, oh, I have insurance, therefore my insurance company is going to take care of me. No, they're designed to minimize. And you've seen that play out in the news, with people being denied and awful things happening out, that people just get so frustrated that that they lose their stuff. But anyway, those are the kinds of things that I think have changed.
Yeah, it's not a very hope instilling overview to say you live longer now than you did in 1925, and it's
You
like,
don't. Well,
yeah,
1925 maybe. Okay,
that's what I
so
mean is
so
like
yeah, you really
if I
yeah, we
had
can
to
go
be a
back to the
lawyer defending
1700s.
modern
Yeah, we're doing
medicine, yeah,
yeah, we're doing way better than we're doing in the 1700s, before, any kind of understanding of infectious diseases and stuff like that. Yeah, yeah, I mean, and that's the beauty of statistics, and that's the beauty of optics. You can look and frame the problem or the challenge or the situation, to either make it a problem or that, oh no, we're doing great. Well, I'm talking about the last 8, 9 years where
yeah,
these statistics have been coming out. And then the question is, yeah, but that's not being debated at the national level. That's not what the professional organizations are doing. If anything, everyone's becoming more and more siloed, and the appreciation that we are complex, integrated, horizontal, sets of systems, so that I'm just not a cardiology system or a circulatory system. If I get a brain injury, and we do a lot of brain health, as you can imagine, it's kind of like there are three systems that I promise you are all going to be affected at the same time, not just the neurology for the executive function, the memory, and all that stuff, but the neuroendocrine. So those people are going to have, sex hormone kind of issues, and we see that with the special forces guys all the time. And you also see, the immune system being affected. So all three of those meet in the brain. So if you come in, we have atomized. Western medicine has gotten so good at specializing, so that and the adage is always like, okay, I'm such a specialist, I know everything about nothing, and the generalist, knows everything, or knows nothing about everything. But there's a happy medium in there where you really appreciate that there's a complexity even in the system, even in the body. And this problem goes all the way back to the Renaissance, when the church kind of said, "Hey, okay, you biologists, okay, you take care of the body, you take care of broken bones, and bleeding and stuff like that. But when it comes to the mind and the spirit, that's going to be the church, and we're going to take over there." Well, that hasn't worked very good. Look at what's happening, in the crisis of the mind and the spirit, globally. And yet, globally, we all kind of believe the same thing. 85% of the world believe or more than 85% believe, in a God of some sort, without going down to atomized religions.
sure. Then is it just gonna reach a natural, not breaking point, but I don't know. Again, you can always look back at history, and it's always so neatly bookmarked, right?
By the winners. It's bookmarked by the winners too.
Sure, sure, but not even
Yeah.
that. Just going like, all right, September 1st, 1939, Germany invades Poland. August 9th, 1945, we nuke Nagasaki. Kind of right there. And then you look back at it and it makes sense. Or you look at the evolution of, the whatever, the radio to the black and white TV to the color TV to the main news stations. And in hindsight, you can kind of see it as what is it, like six media companies all kind of start to consolidate in the late 90s, early 2000s. It reaches kind of like a stale, I don't know, stagnant pond of information, and and it wasn't that there wasn't some top-down idea of like now it needs to change. It was also just with, Moore's law and bandwidth, that the internet, more so than just going to like a website, kind of became a thing like early Facebook, early Instagram, early MySpace, whatever. And in hindsight, you can go, oh, as it was sort of reaching this top heavy, bloated corpse, this new thing came. If no one was planning, if somebody was planning that, then they're the smartest person on earth. But like, you just look
Yeah.
back at it, you go, oh, okay, right? Like as Manhattan, as it went on, they were kind of starting to hit like an insane point of like the amount of horse shit they had to remove every day from Manhattan. And sure, if the money's there and the incentives there, you can keep removing it, but eventually it's then all of a sudden you get this new, gadget called the Model T. There does seem to be, I don't know, you could say that it wasn't by chance. You could say the selection pressures of the previous is what brought out the new one. But it seems
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
right now it's we're doing this, we're spending this much, but we're not getting that, and it's not a very satisfying answer. But you can imagine looking back at this and I don't know, say 2075, and go, oh yeah, that's why the thing of 2030 happened. Whatever that is. I don't know. Is it broad, just AI medicine, like IBM's Watson type thing for your general practitioner? And I don't know, but it does kind of feel like one of those points where it's just hitting this bloated corpse and it's top heavy and something's gonna happen. Now it could also just be catastrophic and beyond our imaginations of horrible. That's the other thing, is it's not always neatly tied up in like a new invention. Sometimes it's the French Revolution and like, everyone ends up without a head. So but it does seem that it can't go on the current trajectory.
I don't think it will. And you've mentioned several points that you can pick where you want to go. You picked AI, so that's a good topic for the future. And also it's kind of like, huh, imagine 10 years ago, did you imagine if you were just having a discussion with people that you wanted to have a discussion with on this technology, if it were available 10 years ago, that you would be censored?
No.
No. So something has changed. Or is it just our memory that we're thinking yeah, I don't really have that. See, that's in your recent memory. That's in your hippocampus. And let me tell you, what happened was factual. Okay, so it's not a memory. It's
Hmm.
like, no, certain things are changing. And I would argue that our inability in science to not have meaningful discussions and debate and arguments, okay, takes it kind of really threatens science, because if I can't have two people disagreeing about facts that we're all learning. I mean, we're always learning, right? That's especially in biology, especially in medicine. If we can't have fights and arguments and discussions about that, then it's not science, it's a religion. That's just a
Hmm.
belief system where, okay, you're gonna have to believe me, or depending on what part we're talking about now, we'll take you out and burn you. And that's been done in the past. And I'm saying, well, there's been some evidence of that, in the recent past, and that's not just my memory fading. It's true. It's real. It's really happening. And I'll tell you, you lost a lot of sovereignty. We all lost sovereignty when someone is saying, "This is what I'm going to do to your body," okay, and you don't get a vote. Now, in the past, and again, one of my specialties is preventive medicine, right? So in the past, that all made sense to me. All right, I was drinking the Kool-Aid for a long time, and it's to a point where, and again, as a military physician, when you're in a triage situation, you don't have enough resources to go around, then you're doing that kind of stuff as well, where you have to pick, what with the resources that you have, how do you take care of the most, to help, as many as you can, knowing that you're going to hurt people. But this went to a whole different level. This went to a whole level that I never thought that I would see in my lifetime. And all physicians were told somehow, if you don't get on the party line, okay, if now again, I'm not talking the party line here because I don't know what threat I'm still under. But the nice thing is at 70, if I lose my license, I can probably do more to help people without a license than I can with a license now. And that alone, that statement alone is a bizarre one for someone to make. And while I am older than you, I assure you I'm completely within my mental faculties and nobody is calling me the least bit, senile or anything
Sure.
like that. In fact, I'm still playing the best chess games I've ever played in terms of just, maneuvering the charity and different organizations, through this complex system.
There's this guy I've had on before, Peter Dale Scott, a journalist. I think he's like 96. Sharp as a tack.
Oh
Has
yeah.
canceled shows before because he and his new girlfriend are going dancing. So I don't age means nothing to me. I'm like that
No,
guy
no,
is smarter
I'm,
than
I'm
most
kidding.
people I know.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah. No, I'm
um,
not. And I'm not in a defensive crouch about it.
yeah, I don't care, dude. Or being one. I don't care. In terms of in terms of the threatening of science, I don't think science is threatened. I think we're threatened. I mean, I get how on paper it looks like, well, we're not doing the scientific method, therefore but it's like gravity is not threatened if we all start to say that 9.81 meters per second square is racist. Gravity's not, hey man, you hop out of this window. It doesn't matter if I go, I think gravity is 9.81 meters per second squared and YouTube goes banned. Hey, I'm not hopping out this window because we all know what
Yeah,
gravity
I
is.
would phrase it differently. So
Sure, yeah, I
gravity,
know, I know. I don't mean that in like
gravity
a,
is truth. Yeah,
yeah.
gravity is truth, but our ability to work with gravity, if we can't even talk about
Well,
it,
precisely.
is greatly limited.
It's precisely. So if anything, I think it's more dangerous. It's not that science
Yeah.
is threatened. It's that we're threatening our own sort of objective, our closest way to look at things objectively probably is the scientific method. Because as we're talking about, other than that, we have memories and we have biases. But certain things are the things you can measure. If we are threatening our ability to use that tool because we don't like what it's showing, the only thing that's going to be hurt is us. We're the
And
only
do, and,
people.
do you think that tool is being threatened?
100%. There is
Okay.
no
Well,
free and
well,
open.
we're locked in
Yeah.
moral agreement,
Yeah.
as are many people who aren't maintaining, who don't have perverted incentives to keep the system the way it is.
Yeah.
Most of us would agree. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess I look at it more than like and it's taken me a long time to get to this point. I look at it more as like I don't know how to word this. It will go the complex system will go its own way until it dies. It's like, okay, so we're censoring, COVID side effects, or we're censoring what is a man, what is a woman, and we're going to keep doing that, and the society can keep doing it. Eventually, the society will implode either because people are having adverse reactions that no one's addressing, or because we have no definition of this, that, and the other thing to where kids are traumatized. On a long enough timeline, you zoom out and like that empire will fester and implode. It,
Yeah, and there's historical precedents for that,
yeah,
to be sure. But
absolutely.
yeah, but that's not what I want for my children.
No,
That's
no,
not
no, of
what I
course.
want
No, it's
for
it's
my
not.
country.
No, no, no. It's not. It's by no means something yeah, it's not something you want to look at and go, yeah, no, this whole thing is actually going to light on fire and you're all screwed. It's like that's not what you say if you're in a society with people you love. Like that's obviously not
Yeah,
the answer.
and and and, and most of the people I believe, right, because I don't have data here. Most of the people I believe are right in the middle, where they believe commonsensical kinds of things. So when you shine the light on these dark edges of this Gaussian distribution of what people are trying to do as to what they think is right for whatever reasons they may believe or incentivized to believe. I got to tell you, one of the things that I have learned in the last 10 years is that when we go with some new technology that I've never learned about, that's one of the whole purposes of creating NFIM where it really works. And I learned that from my motorcycle accident. It's like there are some doctors I go talk to, and they seem to be incentivized, okay, to not let anything change. And we have no time for them whatsoever. Most of the physicians, especially the ones in the military, they're absolutely open to say, okay, I don't understand this. And then we get into the discussion of what would it take for me to convince you that this certain modality, would work and it would work better, more efficacious, safer, and more affordably than the stuff that is the current standard of care. Because the standard of cares, not all of them, but many of them, have conflicts of interest behind them. And the standard of care is some professional group of high priests with long white lab coats, okay, sit around a table for a couple of days and say, okay, well, what do we want this standard of care to be? And they make it up. It's not based on evidence-based medicine. And yet, we say everything is based on evidence-based medicine. I assure you it is not.
Yeah, so what would it take when it's no longer a luxury item? You can vote for this, that, or the other thing in hypothetical election A, B, and C because everything else is pretty good. Your paycheck's good, food prices are good. You,
Yeah,
you
oh
know,
yeah.
you can put it
Conflicting
up.
interests.
Yeah,
It's
you
a
can
balance.
you can put it
It's a
all to the
balance.
side. So it's
Yeah.
okay when everything else is like vibing. It's okay to look at things and feel passionately about, whatever, save the whales. That very quickly goes completely out the window as the necessities are scarce. All of a
Yeah.
sudden, when you're not sure where the next 300 or 400 calories are coming from, I don't think you are necessarily concerned about whatever the spotted raccoon of Western Tokyo, So what would cause it? Survival.
This this is
Survival
where
allows that.
Yeah, this is. I'm going to butcher this. I'm going to butcher this quote. I should have written it down. But Secretary Kennedy got this one right. He said, he said, when you're healthy, you have 1,000 wishes and 1,000 desires. When you're sick, you
Uh,
have but one.
uh-huh.
And nothing. I'm telling you, I see that over and over again. You see that. You see that in medicine. You see that with your parents. You see that everywhere. He is 1,000,000% right.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so that no matter what you're chasing in your professional life, your personal life, or whatever, okay, you can chase it all. As soon as you're not well, you only got one wish, one hope, and you will chase that. Some people will chase it pretty far. Other people will just roll over and die, and we see that in the military too.
Yeah, in terms of the singular thing I told you, I hurt my back working out. And I immediately, and I always think about every once in a while, the thought will pop into my head on just a random day where I'll be like, yeah, I'm so not focused on my body because everything's working well. But how many times when you're a kid did you have strep throat and you're like, I just want this to go away. It hurts to swallow. Like that sucks. Like so even now it's like my back and just like not even I'm like just how many times a day I have like
Yeah.
some off center of gravity movement, right? Like lift something up. I'm like, good Lord, Nav. Like, and that's all I care about. I'm no longer concerned about like, well, how many new subscribers did I get this month? I'm like, I just fucking want my lower back to feel better. And so, what would it take for those modalities to change? Something along those lines of where it's, either a loved one drops dead from something that really
Well, and
shatters
that's
your
what we
belief.
see, and that's what we see, and
Yeah.
it happened to me. So again, I'm not special. Okay, I was at the height of my Air Force career and the medicine career. I was drinking the Kool-Aid. I thought I really knew something about both of these areas, right? I really did. And then all of a sudden, I couldn't protect my own loved ones from certain um, medicine-induced kinds of disasters. I mean, Secretary Kennedy also just recently said in the last, and again, this is not a pro Secretary Kennedy kind of thing, but he's putting some light out where he's saying things that are true. I know them to be true, and so I repeat them and I attribute them to him. But side effects from pharmaceuticals, fourth leading cause of death now, and then that's up. I didn't realize it was that high. So farming is really, really, really bad. But iatrogenic stuff, I couldn't protect my own family as the assistant surgeon general. Okay, and again, they were not military hospitals. They were in ivory tower kind of hospitals, and I took considerable time off, and I was there, and I couldn't stop the mistakes from being made. Now, have I ever made a mistake? Absolutely. I'm not saying that medicine is perfect. It can't be, but it's really dangerous. And the new ethics of medicine 3.0 ought to be something like we're looking for, as good or increased efficacy. We ought to be looking for safety and we ought to be looking for affordability. And those three need to be kind of put into a calculus, into an optimization formula, before you're taken off to have that, joint replacement or something. And we do really well. We've actually, we actually in other people's hands, not just us. And again, the nice thing about what I do is I'm not conflicted. I don't sell anything. All right. So at the end of this podcast, I mean, I'm always taking donations for a 501c3 charity. So anybody listening,
Sure.
by all means, help. But I don't sell anything. And it's really nice when I'm talking to senior people in industry or the military or the government. I go, hey, you got this wrong. I'm not trying to sell you something. I don't have my hand out. Okay. It's you. You're the one with the problem. And we've seen solutions that if you're interested in exploring, then your own people at different locations will tell you that this stuff actually works. We don't ask anybody to believe us, because we're adorable or anything like that. We say, hey, look, this is our experience in the last 10, 12 years. It's true, the payers aren't paying for it. Don't know why. They would make more money. Okay, but that's a complex system in its own right. But and to be honest with you, the DoD is starting to accept a lot of bioenergy, kinds of tools because it's far more efficient. It's far more ethical. Frankly, it's more ethical. And what we're trying to get to is a more ethical way of doing things. And then you'd be able to come at me and say, well, wait a second. Okay, is it really different? See, when you talk about ethics, okay, and ethics, it's your ethics, my ethics. That's a whole podcast. And to be honest with you, I'd go dumb early on that. We did a long presentation on it, and the bioethics books are like 600 pages long, and I will tell you that they're being violated right and left in everyday medical care. And again, it was violated on me, and if it gets by me, okay, with my background and stuff, and I'm injured, then it's kind of like, oh my God, I don't know how the common person protects themselves without knowing the dirty little secrets, like, buying insurance. The insurance people know the dirty little secrets. Okay, it's like getting legal assistance. The lawyers know the dirty little secrets. Pick a profession. You want to buy a car? The used car salesman and the car people know the dirty little secrets of how to optimize. And what absolutely frustrates me at this point is that we have amongst ourselves, amongst our tribe, amongst Americans, people who are willing to hurt you for them to make another buck. And I think that sucks.
I guess in the most like pessimistic view, would be like, so what would get people to change how we're looking at the clearly perturbed use or abuse of the scientific method? The most pessimistic, like the farthest, choice D is, well, eventually it's natural selection. It's like, well, what happens to whatever this group of animals, and you're trying to teach, lead the horse to water, and you're trying to not, don't eat that. Eventually, what will happen is they will die out, and if they don't die out, the ones that are doing the right thing will out proliferate. So on the
Yeah,
longest
yeah, yeah,
timeline, it's like the
yeah.
glacial movement is like eventually the
Yes,
thing that
yes, Dr.
works will just,
Darwin.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah, exactly.
yeah,
So
yeah,
part
but
of me is like,
but
if we don't examine any of this, well, eventually there's going to be some other society that does, and when they just
we
have higher birth rates and
yes.
life expectancies, we'll just kind of fade
Yeah,
out.
no. So I don't want you. Yeah, yes, I do seem to have black on today, but I don't want to be called Dr. Death
No,
on
no, no.
the show.
I'm just no, no. I'm
I don't want to be the pessimist, but I wanted to articulate and explain and defend to the degree that it needs to be, the argument needs to be founded, that that a problem really does exist. Now, what we're seeing is, I will tell you, more and more Americans are absolutely getting into, and again, I would say integrative medicine. And again, the next question is, well, what is integrative medicine? It's a garbage term. Here, I'm the executive director of a foundation. And did he just say that integrative medicine is garbage? I go, nah, it's not really garbage, but it got your attention. And I go, everybody has a different definition of integrative medicine. Everybody has a different definition of allopathy and whatever. And for us, it's easy. Okay. whatever your definition is of integrative medicine, I'm going to accept it to get into the conversation. But if it works, if it has efficacy, and if it's and at some point it'll have some sort of brackets of a certain level of safety, because nothing is 100% safe. Paracelsus, I can kill you with water, I can kill you with oxygen, right? So anything, and the dose is the toxicity. But there's a lot of things that we can do that have very, very low toxicity. There are certain modalities we used for 10 years that we've not had a serious, or even a serious side effect, and then the people get better. Is that better than risking a surgery that will then kind of risk the anesthesia, the infection from the knee joint, a pharmaceutical, mistake? I mean, people die from those things all the time. Now, I'm not saying they're not necessary. I am not saying that at all, because if you come to me with meningitis, if I'm not reaching for pharmaceuticals and an emergency, trip for you to a hospital, you're going to be dead in
Hmm.
20 minutes or an hour. So I'm not saying that integrative medicine is using the entire continuum of everything available, just not all automatically reaching for things that are less effective, less safe, and more expensive. I'm saying that's not ethical for the country or for you as the patient. And we're finding more and more physicians kind of get it. Now what we have to do is help them figure out how they can make a living doing it. And that comes with policy and compliance and pay. I mean, it's a complex industry, but we are making strides. It is improving, and there's 85% of the population use some sort of supplements and stuff. So now all of a sudden that's a little bit into functional medicine. There's a plug for functional medicine, although I think even functional medicine has some blind spots. Whereas the future really is quantum medicine and energy medicine, because we were energy before we were biochemistry.
Mm.
And it's the physics, initially Newtonian, but Newtonian physics is run by quantum physics. So everything in Newtonian physics can be pushed by quantum. And I can't do the math, so don't worry, we're safe on this podcast. But we are seeing effects of quantum medicine, and we are starting to understand DNA at both the Newtonian and the quantum area, as we use a lot of energy, and we're starting to see things work. And then the fascia, with the photons actually traveling in and out of the body. And everybody says, what? There's photons, there's light inside the body every time, you go on like one of the TV shows. I don't see any light as they open up the cavity, doing surgery. It's not like a flashlight in there. They have to bring light in. Well, these photons do exist there. And there's a lot of information in energy that is transitioning up and down the fascia, the tubules. And this from the fact that if you have night vision goggles, and I use them in the military, it's like, okay, you're emitting infrared. I can spot you 100 miles away in my A10,
Mm.
and if you're foolish enough to then light up a cigarette, then you're really dumb,
Then
because
you're
you're going to be dead soon. Yeah.
then you're dead. Smoking kills in more than one way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it makes sense. And I mean, you just, from whatever limited experience I have on this earth, I mean, I look at, the years following when my brother died, for more than anything, I was trying to like force everything into this, I don't know, scaffolding. I'm like, well, if I can't go to sleep, well, then you got to take Benadryl, and if you can't, if you're tired in the
Right.
morning, you got to chug coffee. And if you're versus now, I'm more like
Right.
99 out of 100 days, like I go to bed at the same time and wake up at the same time. And if things deviate, I don't immediately go for how do I shove them back in. I'm like, maybe this, in hindsight, I can look at it at last Thursday. I was feeling pretty burnt out. My muscles were achy. Friday, I was exhausted during the shows. And then sure enough, like I injured something yesterday. And it's like, well, in hindsight, you can kind of see like, maybe you should have just let the natural, why am I? You don't always need an explanation of why you're tired. You just go, my body's telling me I'm tired, man. I don't know. And I think that is maybe from my, again, kind of Neanderthal grasp of integrative medicine seems to be something more like that. It's not everything needs the newest, fresh out of the patent office drug. It's not, people don't want to hear it because it's not like a scientific. so much of it sometimes is like, man, just go out and get some sun. Like,
Well,
hey, stop
absolutely.
eating dog shit, dude. Like, what do you do in the
Yeah,
evenings? Like, it
yeah,
really is. And you don't want to hear it because it's like not you want the high tech answer, but sometimes it's like, do you go to the gym? I would get off, stop watching the news for like an evening. Or you feel down, stop watching
yeah,
nonstop images of like
yeah,
genocide. Just it's a lot of it
yeah,
is that, and it's not a fun
yeah.
answer, and it doesn't happen immediately. But if you do listen to that, sometimes it's just like
But
your
that's
back hurts. It's like take a day off from the gym, idiot. Like,
yeah, yeah. And everybody's on a personalized journey.
Yeah,
And we respect that totally. And that goes to the mind and the spirit. Medicine is very much, partnership. It's a team sport, and I do find, me included, and I think you included too, having our conversation and watching you, it's kind of like, okay, something hurts. Give me the easy solution. Give me the easy button. Give me the staples. That was easy. Give me one pill. I want to be better. Now, what and sometimes that works, and I'm not opposed to that.
sure,
But if that starts killing your kidneys, okay, or starts causing you some other problems, then you can still do that. I will respect your ability to do something dumbass, okay. And you know why I will? Because I want you to respect my ability or my sovereignty to do something dumb. And I have done. I mean, I was a fighter pilot. In order to keep flying, I'm not ever in public going to admit to things that I was willing to do in order to keep flying because that was truly my love.
sure,
Now, having said that, there are once you have more options. So once you felt that thing pop into your lower back, if you had some other options and it was readily available, I suspect you wouldn't be in as much pain as you were today. Instead of taking I'm guessing, 800 milligrams of ibuprofen or whatever you took, because that's your age group. And then, depending if you drink, I mean, we have a lot of people who come with pain meds and some alcohol, and they're thinking that, okay, this guy's a doctor. It's kind of like going to the dentist, and I always get asked, did you brush your teeth? And I go, hell yeah, I did. Do you think I wouldn't brush my teeth on the day that I came here? Now, if you ask me, did I brush them yesterday? That's a different question, perhaps, but I certainly brushed them today. And they laugh because they know if you ask the question differently, you're just going to get a lie. Because we all take shortcuts there, and that's human nature to some degree, except for truly disciplined people. But what we have also found is, and again, I don't know your brother John's circumstances, and I'm sorry for your loss, and I don't want to go back there, but the suicides that we have stopped, mostly among special forces people, they're in tremendous pain, and when you are in chronic pain, okay, you don't have 1,000 wishes. You're not trying to. Yes, you want to be around when your daughter graduates from high school and stuff like that, but you can't think of anything except get me out of this pain. And over time, it wears you down. So these people, most of us can endure it for a while,
hmm,
but it wears you down over time. And then, again, when I was in my motorcycle accident, it was a doozy. I'm looking at my own tibia in the middle of the road, and I'm thinking, because I really, on paper, I look like I should know something, and I do, because when I'm looking at my bone, I go, oh shit, this isn't good. If I was looking at your bone, I go, oh, this will be fun. I get
no
to get
shit,
to do something
yeah,
interesting this weekend. But they left me in pain and stuff, and it wasn't until my own situation I go, why isn't this being offered to other people? When we get people in acute distress and we can get them out of pain and we can get them sleeping, that buys us time. It buys us 70 to 80 hours where all of a sudden they have hope. And it's what hope is what seems to be missing in a lot of the medical encounters. And in fact, I recently, I don't want to go into too much detail on my shtick, but I recently had a doctor say, "You're not going to get better." I started laughing at him. I go, "Really? You're betting against the patient?" I mean, that is just the opposite of what I learned in medical school. So I know some things are changing. And this guy's not a young doctor. He's not old, but he's not young. I go, you're really betting against me? And I go, I don't know how much money you have, but I will take that bet as much as you want. And and clearly he's an allopath. Okay. And I have a lot more tools. I have regenerative medicine tools. I have V cells. I know quite a bit more about nutrition than I did when I was just practicing allopathic medicine. You know, peptides, bioelectrical kind of stuff. There's a whole host of ways to regenerate and re-put the original blueprints, into those cell areas. And that's where the excitement of the future goes. And I'm hoping before the whole system implodes that just the education piece will start driving people and forcing the incentives to change. And that's our goal, and that's what we work toward.
Yeah, the kind of the easy path that I was actually said it this morning. I was thinking last night, like laid down, and I was like, oh, like motherfucker, it even hurts when I lay down. And
Yeah,
I was like,
yeah,
and I was like, and I have shows tomorrow, and I was like, I just made peace with like, all right, well, you might not get a full night's sleep. And the thought popped in my head. I've been sober a year and a half, a little longer. I never didn't have a ton of problems, but I was drinking more than I should have. And I was like, man, and I've never even recreationally, I've never enjoyed
yeah.
painkillers. I took them for my tonsil. I didn't like them. Yeah, I like alcohol. I'm Irish. I guess I'm lucky in that I don't like painkillers. I don't like nicotine. So I think God looked
Yeah,
at me and he was like, dude, you're so addicted to so many things. I'm gonna take out those top two because you're gonna die. But last night it popped in my head. I'm like, God, man, I would take a Percocet. And then I stopped and I went, I wonder how many people are under some highway bridge fighting a homeless man for a sock and go, man, 20 years ago, if I had just not taken that one Percocet, which led to the second one, which led to the fifth, which led to this, which led to that. And I just went, how many people are looking back in time and going, if I could just do that? And I just pretended that taking one pill, not that I even have one, taking one pill leads me
yeah. No,
down. And I
I
went,
totally
let's
get it.
go back in time. And I go,
Yeah,
does my back hurt? And I put a pillow between my legs. I go, it hurts a little less. And I go, I'm just gonna, I'll deal with this for now. And that is, again, it's never the answer you want. It's never the,
yeah.
you
We
know,
normally when we see guys, I mean these are guys, and normally they've been thrown out of the military, they've been through the VA, the VA tries to the best that they can. That's a whole nother podcast, not with me. Um, um, but they fall through the cracks and somehow they get a by name referral, and I'm doing a favor. That's how I get involved most of the time to my network. But they all come and they're in pain, and the first thing and they haven't been sleeping. So I said, well, what are you doing? How are you self medicating? And they'll say, well, they never include the alcohol, but there's always alcohol.
yeah.
And when I hear about it, I go, hey, I'm not saying alcohol is okay, but it's a rational decision,
Yeah, you're a ton of pain.
based
You
on
don't
the
have
pain that you're
pills.
in.
Yeah, grab a
Yeah,
bottle.
yeah, but they
I
do
get it.
both. Is what I'm saying. It's the
Well,
Percocet and the alcohol. And I
yeah,
said, okay, if I can get you out of pain, if you give me 2 days, and I can get you, if you're 9, 8 over 10 pain, if I can get you down to 2 over pain or 2 over 10 pain, you interested in that? And I go, and they always say, what do I have to do? And I go, you don't have to believe in anything. You just hang out with us. And and I think what the military has found out, over 90% in their hands using these same techniques that are just totally safe. Two AA batteries can get people out of pain. Now we have more sophisticated stuff, but that's how we started. And it started. And this is not new stuff. This is not like DARPA hard, or BARDA or DITRA.
yeah,
No, this is stuff that's been around for decades and decades. Okay, it's not patentable because you can't patent, two AA batteries and bioelectricity. You can't patent frequencies. You can't patent vitamins. Vitamins aren't going to get you out of acute, and that's where I think functional medicine, falls down a little bit, because the people who are really in trouble, who are looking for something new other than pharma, they're looking for something a little faster, like you are. Okay, you're looking. I mean, yesterday and last night, and between acoustics and bioelectrical stuff, we can put you into an alpha state very, very safely that will relax you.
Mm.
Okay, we can get the pain, we can take the inflammation away, energetically. And by energy, I'm not saying woo stuff, although I'm not opposed to woo either. The allopaths that just say, "Oh, that's woo," there's no evidence. I go, no, that's full of shit. Actually, if you see something happen over and over and over again, it's the scientific method is
It's
we're starting
there.
to study that, and it has been studied. So everything from acupuncture, Ayurvedic, in the application we're talking about Ayurvedic medicine will take a little bit longer time, but over time, all of that works in terms of. So these are the things that are beyond. Pick your favorite non-steroidal. Pick your favorite surgery, and then pick your favorite, physical therapist, and that's what allopathic. That's what is paid for in this country for the most part. Now they're adding acupuncture. Okay, thousands of years of time-honored moving energy. So that's huge. It's the beginning. We're entering the stage of medicine 3.0, and our website for medicine 3.0 and EM, is certainly part of that. Fundamentally part of that because he's the one that said, okay, based on what I'm hearing you saying, you're looking at a whole nother domain. And if medicine 1.0 was everything, pre 1910, so that goes thousands of years of Ayurvedic and acupuncture stuff that worked. And also the wagon trains with the oil tincture, which is what, Rockefeller was doing too. So even parts of that worked. And then there were charlatans. But then in 1910, there was a Flexner report that was Rockefeller. And I'm guessing you know about that.
Mm.
And at that point, everything changed in the country and medical schools. And everybody said we need research. And, there's only surgery and there's pharmaceuticals and there's PT and everything else is quackery. Well, I'm here to tell you if it works, it's not quackery. Okay. And I'm here to tell you that, if you come to me and you're sick or you're in pain, there's a 30% chance that, placebo will get you out of pain. Why would I not use that for you?
Oh yeah.
It's very, very safe. So I give you a piece of sugar. Okay. And why wouldn't I do that for the patient? Because they're going to tell me if they're out of pain or not. And we also, for back pain, we also have some objective, quantifiable ways of documenting that you're in pain that have withstood court challenges and stuff. So we do. I always like doing the objective, quantifiable piece because it helps in the scientific way. But for you, it's very clear. I'm in pain. I don't give a damn what any machine says. I don't care if you believe me or not. I know how I feel. And why does the system kind of ignore that? Well, 30% of everything that happens out here is placebo. Well, you can also make yourself sick, called a nocebo. So I can give
Mm.
myself sickness. We acknowledge that. Everybody says stop the stress, stop all these bad things that you're doing because you're going to make yourself sick. And yet the other side of that seesaw is, well, if your mind can make you sick, can it not make you better? Well, of course it can. We see it happen all the time. So let's say it happens 30% of the time because that's what the high priest in academia says it will. Then every time I add another modality on, I get another 30%. I add three more modalities that are safe and effective. I'm really, above 95%, there of getting you out of pain very, very quickly, effectively, and changing your entire rehab course.
Yeah, placebo is it's yeah, it's not it's not fake. If placebo's fake, yeah. It was just a dream. Well, it's not a dream when you're having it, whether it's good or bad. Um, but for right now, Dr. Demitry, we gotta bring this one to a close. I do want to have you back on because I do want to talk about everything we kind of went down with the AA batteries, and as well as something that's near and dear to me is
Double A
like,
bad.
well, and then it is the idea of like a lot of people are at a breaking point where they really are like one good night of sleep away from rational thought. I mean, you go a couple nights, it starts to go out the window, and a
As,
single night's sleep, you
as you
go,
get
okay.
older, as you get older and have to get up to go pee, you're not there yet. I used to laugh at the old men. I used to laugh at the old men, and now I am one. And thank God, but I just had three calls. If you have to get up every 2 hours to go pee, it's a miserable existence. And if you can't even get those 2 hours, so sleep is really, really one of the places we start. And I think we're pretty effective at getting people there.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's yeah, it's stuff like that. So many people are just, I think a lot of that's probably with suicide as well. It's like if you can just be talked down from the edge for just get a good night's sleep, it really can. So we'll put a pin in it for there, and I will obviously put the link to the website in the description. And but yeah, man, thank you for the time out of your day. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, I hope you feel better.
It,
I,
it's it's
I,
it's better than it was yesterday, which tells me it's going to get better. So,
yeah.
all right, bro.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. Thanks for having me,
Yeah,
Tommy. You
man.
take care of
Thank you for
yourself.
coming on. That was enjoyable. I appreciate the time out of your day. We'll do it again. I will email you this, and thank you so much, man. You take care.
Thanks a lot. Bye
All right,
bye.
brother. Take it easy. Peace.